Today we're going to be showcasing some Miyamoto testing. Yes, the warrior swordsmen are getting some good old-fashioned love, and we will test them against Ramses just to see how good it is against them. Because a lot of people do ask, what's better, the warrior swordsman or the tactical swordsman? And the thing is, both marchers are going to be fantastic against pikemen, but what about against each other? And that is what we're going to answer in today's video. So smash like, comment, and subscribe. And the way we're going to be doing this is you're going to see some tests of two different basically setups for the good old Miyamoto. And I do want to apologize out in advance. As you can kind of tell, for some reason the Pioneer server today was a little bit laggy when we recorded the first couple of clips, but it does clean up a little bit on, so I do apologize. But what we're going to be going for, as you'll notice, in the first set of battle reports, which many people are asking, what's better, tribhuwana in the middle or Lagertha in the middle? Really good question. Obviously, everyone wants to know. So what we're going to do basically in these tests, if you've not guessed it, is check that out. We're going to swap these two positions basically and see what does perform better. And what's really interesting, as you've noticed, from the very first one, obviously we did lose to the good old Ramses here. And if we go down and check out basically what we're running here on the March setup, we do have the Charlemagne, and you gotta remember, on the Pioneer server, we wasn't able to max out these epic skills, which would be maxed out, which would obviously make it more effective. So remember, we're taking that with a little bit of grain of salt when we're coming into these evaluations. So when we look at the ring choice, it's really nice to see, obviously, Effulgent Flame from our earlier tests. If you watched that video to do with the tactical swordsman, especially with Sun Tzu and Ramses involved, the Effulgent Sunny is actually pretty good. It's obviously increasing the amount of strategy damage they take, which is really good because you're going to do a shit ton of damage with the Ramses, but also offering that silence too to try to obviously interrupt whenever these warrior swordsmen start going off themselves, right? So pretty fair game. This is obviously what we had access to. The only improvement some people might suggest, which I would agree with, is maybe the lofty mountain there versus the tranquil water. But I do believe maybe in the future reports, if my memory serves right, we do test that out anyway, the difference between lofty mountain and tranquil water during all of this too. But here you can see with the lofty mountain equipped, even though the tranquil water should perform better in the open field scenarios, it did its job, and it was actually able to absolutely slap our first fight here. And it was pretty close, especially when you're looking at all of the tech bonuses that we've put on in display, since some of you guys were asking for this in last videos, and I did think about it in this recording. I was like, why not just actually add in the buffs as well, so you guys can fully see what everyone had access to on their marches and so on. But when we kind of skip into it now and go through obviously the main stats, obviously you can see here some really important information, and we do need to keep an eye out on the two numbers, which is the Lagertha and the Miyamoto's damage, because you got to think we are going to be swapping that Lagertha and tribhuwana around. And by swapping them around, is it going to increase their damage output? Because technically the tribhuwana might get to act quicker, allowing the march to kind of machine gun off, or double barrel shotgun off, as some people are calling it, quicker, right? So when we go into now the detailing of it as well, you're going to be quite surprised when we look at some of these numbers that was able to land, because obviously Charlemagne and Theodora doing their thing there, doing what they need to do. But when we look at the activations here, if your Ramses is getting a 25 or above activations, you generally know it's a good report. Let's just say that, especially from our testing in the past. And it's no different here. 45k damage just from that compared to the Miyamoto at 23.4. And this does honestly take a big factor in as well when we look at this stage 2. Because one thing you might have thought I forgot, but I didn't, and I was waiting for you guys to maybe catch myself out, but it's those silencers. We did get 6 silence effects during that fight, which would obviously explain as well the potential damage reduction or output that actually occurred for the warrior Swordsmen here. So when we go into the next battle report or battle and fight, we're running the exact same setup, and I wanted to kind of make it clear each time we go through. You can see we're running the exact same things. Nothing has changed basically on our end, and obviously you'll be able to see the battle report afterwards. But in this fight, again, it's not looking too shabby. Both actually going pretty toe to toe, and you can see the Miyamoto there slapping, and there we go, executed. Yes, you saw correctly, and I'm not even lying, me and Steve during this testing while we was in voice chat just went, oh my god, because the amount of damage this just monstrous of a march just dealt is obviously obscene. And you gotta think, we're running the exact same stuff. Nothing changed from the first fight to the second fight, which is quite devastating. And when we go into the details in this fight, and obviously checking the status effects, you'll see, look, the actual Ramses didn't get his chance to silence. And because he didn't get his chance to silence, boys, we ended that fight so quick that basically the Theodora and, as you can see, the even Charlemagne really wasn't able to do much, right? She didn't do any damage, meaning she wasn't really affecting that healing too much. It was mainly from her signature skill, which we can check out in a moment. And then that Charlemagne, only 298 healing from him, which is not good enough at all compared to our side with 1.7k and 2.2k in the same fight threshold. And this is where things get a lot more interesting. In 8 activations, we did 22.6 damage compared to obviously the Ramses that didn't really get to charge up and only do 14 activations and 19.7 obviously a damage in that. So it's really interesting to see from the first fight to this fight, the drastic change of what occurs. And one thing I started to look at, and I think we need to keep an eye out on, is the Lagertha. The Lagertha is absolutely disgusting when you get to see her skill basically get those stacks and then just go boom onto the enemy, especially with the Miyamoto too, and technically the tribhuwana now doing her job as well, buffing everyone too. It is actually a fantastic little match. I'm not going to lie, it's impressed me from the tests. And that might be a little bit of a spoiler of how I'm going to be addressing and kind of finishing up how I feel about, obviously, this match in the game. So here's another one, and just to kind of put it in, that's 2 for 1 now, where you saw this Miyamoto just absolutely obliterate that Ramses, which really does make us think, okay, what else could we do? You know what I mean? Like, what are we able to test later on? And don't worry, we do some other things, I think, right at the end. But you can see everything is the same, apart from now, what we did just for some people, since a lot of the whales that run the Ramses march does, as you see there, which is the Charlemagne change. They run War Tactic and the Bloodthirst, obviously maxed out. They know they're not really getting too much might bonus on the Bloodthirst, but it's extra additional healing at the end of the day, and some of them like that playstyle. And this is just to kind of showcase, look, if you play it that way, it didn't really seem to change much. That was just as explosive as the last one. And if we go into the next fight for this, so if we go here and we've got the tribhuwana still at the end, we've I think got one more fight of this just to kind of showcase the highlights of all of it. You can see we got a good off silence from Ramses silencing the Miyamoto there really well. But it doesn't matter if we get that combo going. Look at it, boom boom, we hit a silence. So our combo kind of stagnated for a second, but boom, boom, it's just gone. We did 20k damage and he's left on literally 5k. It was not even close. And the scary thing is, guys, this was occurring with the Tranquil Water equipped. And this is what was actually really surprising to me and Steve, because me and Steve and a lot of people, honestly, we do like the warrior infantry, we really do, right? But the Ramses match from last season really seemed to steal the spotlight because it felt like a bit more excitement and it looked just better on paper when you used it. However, as you can kind of see now, with the introduction of Lagertha, this is an absolute monstrous match. She's actually an absolute powerhouse of kind of like this offensive support hero that is basically dealing a good amount of damage, but she's also enabling that Miyamoto to do even more work. And the thing is, when the Miyamoto obviously triggers his skill, it's buffing each other. It's like this little crazy little leapfrog where they work perfectly hand in hand, which we will explain at the end of the video, just so you guys can kind of understand why these comps are really interesting right now and people are looking at. But there's another Tranquil Water fight, guys. That's 2 Tranquil Waters and just clips for you guys to see. It was not even a game changer, which was kind of disgusting to think about. So now what we're going to do, and this is what was kind of interesting and what a lot of you guys ask in the comment sections with this, what happens if we swap them, right? What happens if we are able to swap these guys around? Does the match seem to perform any better? Because the thing is, after those 5 clips, as you guys have seen, me and Steve obviously have done more tests before that and in between, just to kind of give ourselves obviously as much of an opinion as we can on the match. So now we've said, okay, now we've got our verdict on it. What about if we swap the tribhuwana? Because we've got a good understanding on how much of a percent this match is going to win. And what you're going to notice, as you'll see here in this very first example, it's very similar, right? It is very similar on the outcome, where we are, even though we're lagging a little bit, obviously, in the gameplay, which I do apologize again for you all, running the exact same combo. All we've done is swap these 2 matches around. But when we go into the details of this report, that is what really kind of sells what's going on here, because the tribhuwana coming in second here, especially in this report, does enable basically the Miyamoto, as you can see, to actually do a little bit more on his own, which is quite interesting. The fact that you're basically saying, okay, Mia, you are already our carry, right? Be the carry still. But when he does his bop, he's like, yo, Lagertha, just help me finish them off. And she's like, yeah, sure. Boom. And she comes in with that slam, right? Obviously, it's not her slam. She's obviously doing the skill from her signature stacking onto the Miyamoto as well, right? But you get my drift, right? It's kind of filthy when you are looking at what this is doing. And the thing is, that's not the only one. Like I said, here we go again, another rodeo of this match, slapping into a Ramses. And the thing is, Ramses here is really getting destroyed. And the thing is, if you're a tactical swordsman player, a lot of you, if you're a bit of a 5-ed player, should understand why this is occurring now. Because the thing is, as everyone will tell you, Miyamoto kind of just goes, like he just goes bang, 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 bang. It's like a very consistent pattern of damage when it comes out. When you play Ramses with Charlemagne and Theodora especially, this is more of a swordsman match that ramps up better and better as the fight goes on, because obviously you can get the Son of Ra stacked and running from the commander skill of the Ramses, and then you got the signature skill doing the same thing. So then you got this triggering twice off your commander skill, and it starts to absolutely fire. But you can see here in most of the comparisons, your Ramses is barely getting to 25 activations. He's lucky to get, I think the highest we saw was this report, which was 22 in that, right? And this is just a replay, by the way, of the last fight, just to kind of showcase it off one last time before we move on to the next clipperini of it all, right? So absolutely devastating. So moving on, this is the next big old question. What about Mehmed in the lineup. So we start to try it, and this is 1v1 in now, Mehmed versus tribhuwana. So is warrior infantry better with the tribhuwana in, or is it better with the Mehmed in? And what you're going to notice is a very interesting little fight here, because at first it does look great for me. I have won the very first maybe like test that we did of this, and people were like, okay, that might be to be expected, because we're running, as you can see here, the rings that we had available if we could choose any sort of good ring. Maybe if I did the scorching one like good old thing did here, it would have been better. Or even if I just put on the Skyward Knight onto the Mehmed, we probably would have performed better. But moving into the next fight, which is more important to showcase off, because obviously we were just testing a little bit on that first fight. Mehmed versus Lagertha has a very telling story, which is Lagertha seems, no matter what in these lineups, right, to be the game changer that wins, right? And the thing is, in Mehmed versus the tribhuwana does beat the Mehmed, and it can easily beat the Mehmed. But as you saw in that fight with my Mehmed march instead of his tribhuwana march, right, your march is a lot more explosive but vulnerable. And what I mean by that is Mehmed is a very weird gamble hero for warrior infantry. And the next fight will kind of solidify what we mean by that, because even though we've won those two fights that looked very comfortable for our Mehmed there, when we go up against it again, watch the difference now of this match. And you're going to start to see a big change. And I think the only difference was the way the heroes was positioned in the other comp, right? And Mehmed was obviously winning, which is fantastic for me, right? Absolutely fantastic for me. But when it came to actually fighting the full combo of this, you'll see we're not going to win. And that is because Mehmed's signature skill really does rely on one thing only. If you're able to hit the troop reduction, you're going to win. It's as that simple. Because if you don't do it, this is what occurs every other time in testing. And I'm going to be blunt with you. I know I showcased off 3 clips that looked really good from the Mehmed that was absolutely dominating the tribhuwana. But every other time that didn't happen. And if you're wondering what the percentage was, to be honest, the tribhuwana won about 6 out of 7, maybe 6.5. That's a good one. Maybe 6.5 out of 10 times, right? And every time that she won, it was because of this. And it was all down to Mehmed. Mehmed being the game changer. Can Mehmed do what Mehmed does best, which is give you the damage reduction and the damage boost at the same time? And if he can do that, this hero and his lineup does beat the tribhuwana. But in any other case, the tribhuwana build for the Miyamoto always does beat the Mehmed. And the only reason it's doing that is because of the tribhuwana kind of being able to scale off. And what we mean by that is the more chances or more activations she gets going, obviously she makes the match a little bit more robust, but more importantly, she gives that support to the Miyamoto, and that support alone is what makes that Miyamoto Lagertha burst so heavy, just like this one here. Like, look at the devastation that this absolute monstrous of a match does. So, in summary, what did we learn from today's video, and why have I showed you all of this and kind of led you with like a donkey, you know, with a carrot all the way to the end so you guys understand? I've purposely done that to give you it here, right? Well, what we learned was quite interesting. With the Miyamoto March, right, and you're running Miyamoto in there with the tribhuwana and the Lagertha in your lineup, this combination is actually the best combination. For some reason, because you're able to get your tribhuwana's signature skill off more often because she's activated in turn, and more importantly too, people which really do underlook this, having Kingsblade on this hero, giving them that 20% damage boost here, and obviously when it's maxed out, it's 30% extra damage, is massive because it really carries over to the Lagertha and the Miyamoto instantly, which is just beautiful if the Lagertha starts to do what Lagertha does, which is deal that might damage, which ignores the defense, which is great because it's 30% more, but then applying that judgment to your hero and the commander, and when activating that signature active skills, there is a, at the moment, 60% chance, which I believe goes obviously higher to I think about 70%, is it, or 75%? I forgot what it is. Chance to activating the skill an additional time, which is disgusting because if this goes off another time, obviously it goes a little bit quicker. But then if Miyamoto's skill is also going off another time, this gives, as you can see, a 45% chance that the hero of the highest might cast their signature active skill or turn-based skill, while increasing their extra skill damage by 30%. So basically, he's enabling Lagertha to trigger off more often. Lagertha is letting Miyamoto try to trigger more often. And then in the middle is this tribhuwana that is just speeding it up because of this skill kind of going off a little bit more often. And that's kind of what we figured out because of this match. And it is down to obviously a Kingsblade 2 and Righteous Judgment as well, just enabling these to get off a little bit sooner to get the buffs onto the heroes is a very massive big deal in this match. But definitely, tribhuwana in the middle is king. Now, when we go against the Mehmed marches, so if you're running Mehmed with the Miyamoto and Lagertha, Mehmed can easily go toe-to-toe with this match, and some people will probably say, look, they're probably equally as good for different reasons, right? And I can 100% agree with that. The issue with Mehmed, though, when you do fight the 1v1 with the tribhuwana, is the fact that you are gambling, technically, this signature skill. Because like I said, if you don't get that reduced damage taken by 25%, especially on that first activation, so you can kind of negate the initial burst of this, you know, nasty tribhuwana combo that's about to come at you, you're kind of going to lose, because even if you increase your troops' damage dealt by 30%, you can already see the other combo is already doing that a little bit better, right? So it really does matter on basically the Mehmed rolling that reduction, and that's kind of what we learned through this, and it is really good either way. I'm going to be honest with you guys. So if you're a Warrior Swordsman player and you're thinking about upgrading Mehmed and replacing tribhuwana, or vice versa, to be honest, they're both good. They both have different reasons. And the thing is, maybe later down the line, you might need another hero to unlock, right? A new Warrior Swordsman unlock in like Season 6 or Season 7. And Mehmed can just slot in that march while you've already got this absolute power march, right? Because maybe you run something like Yodi, Mehmed, and a brand new warrior infantry, you know, swordsman hero that's on their way for you guys. So that's what my verdict is. If you guys have not guessed it, because of these actual results, I originally, as many of you guys may have known from my kind of series of an account updates and so on, I've actually rushed my Lagertha, and this is actually what I've been working on now. Like literally, as soon as this all happened and all of that jazz has gone on, I've been pumping everything into her, so then I can technically put on pause the good old like tactical pikeman that I was originally trying to level up and star up. But this has really eye-opened me, right? It's a really big eye-opener, and it just showcases, look, if you're a swordsman player, you've got a good absolute lineup there, right? You can go down the Miyamoto route and it's going to slap. You can go down the Ramses route and it's going to slap. But if you build this Miyamoto correctly, you should be the Ramses, right? The only time you can imagine Ramses are going to be beating you is if they're built up. They've got like level 80 gear, max stars, they've got the perfect ring, they've got the best type of obviously mount onto them now, which is obviously the brand new mechanic as we are kind of showcasing this or recording this right now for you guys. But yeah, absolute phenomenal. I'd love to hear your thoughts, obviously, on the man, Miyamoto. What's your opinion on this March? Are you absolutely impressed with the footage that you've seen and just showcasing that? Look, warrior infantry really do fucking slap here in season 4 and 5, and you gotta think, right now of this recording, we already know there's 4 brand new signet rings, and at least 2 of them, and even 3 of them, look promising to use on this March. So it's definitely going to be a meta shakeup very soon, so keep an eye on it. Obviously, we're going to be reporting all of that news. And if you've enjoyed today's video, you know what to do. Smash a like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next one, stay safe, stay sneaky. Peace out.